succeed at VCE English, you need to have the ability to read a piece of writing and analyze it. Whether that's a novel that you're writing a text response essay on or a language analysis article that you're analysing in a SAC. The skill involved with reading a piece of writing, understanding what the author is saying, identifying any use of language techniques, and then articulating how the author's use of language helps them convey or express their meaning. Well, all of that is tricky, but it's what we're going to be working on today. Now, as I mentioned, these analytical skills are obviously applicable to text response essays. In fact, they're the foundational skills that any good text response essay is built on. But they're also super crucial for language analysis because on an exam, you're going to be reading a text for the first time. You're going to have to analyze it on the spot without any help from your teacher. So today, I'm going to walk you through one of my favorite study strategies for improving analytical skills. So what we're going to be doing is actually pretty straightforward. We're going to be reading a couple of short texts, articles, or extracts from novels. We're going to analyze them together and discuss how the author's use of language techniques helps them convey meaning. Then we're going to translate that analysis into a single paragraph condensed version of a text response. Because we're practicing the whole process from beginning to end, reading something, analyzing it on the spot, and writing an analytical response on it, we're going to get to practice every step along the way in a bite-sized and manageable way. Before we get too stuck into it, I just want to mention that while this study strategy is incredibly useful for VCE English students or even English Lit students, because as I said, it's a bite-sized text response, the activity I'm walking you through and the texts I'm going to show you are actually from the New South Wales English exam. So if you find this study strategy useful and you want to find more short text or extracts like the ones I'm going to show you, head to the NESA Past Papers website. All right, now diving straight in, I'm going to start by reading out this article called Look Alive by Lauren Clark, and then we're going to analyze it together. I was walking down the street the other day and I met a very small child. I was chatting with the child's parent, a friend of mine, who had stopped me as I dashed past, and we were doing the thing where we had to move our conversation off the footpath so other people could pass. I realized after a while that I had not yet properly engaged with the little girl, so I asked her a question, which she answered in that way children have sometimes when speaking to adults, as if to say, I will indulge your frankly dull question with an answer, but mostly I shall watch your face with a look of mild disdain. I thought perhaps this would be the end of it, but then she asked me something. Pardon? I asked her, and watched a slight look of irritation cross her face. I said, she shouted up at me, are you on the way to somewhere? We are always, but not really, on our way to somewhere. Look back at any letter, email, or message thread from a friend when you were updating them on your life, and you will discover that you were on your way somewhere, but you're also exactly where you are now. Perhaps then, the secret is to be watching, always, the things you're seeing at that moment, enjoying them for what they are, rather than second-guessing what they might become. Small people, even the intense wizard I met in the street, are very good at this. They run into a field and find hiding places, cubbies, swords, and forts. They forget about time and place and social mores, so look around. Find the best thing and the worst thing, and the thing you would find the hardest to explain to an alien. Find the best view. Can't find a view? Tidy a desk, wash a window, rearrange a cutlery drawer. Sometimes where you are right now isn't very nice at all. Sometimes it's hard and sad and confusing and frustrating. On those days, find a thing. Doesn't have to be a big thing. Doesn't even have to be a thing you care about, but there's always something. A person being nice to someone in a supermarket. A song that takes you somewhere else. A donut. A bath. Toast. This is a public service announcement. Doesn't matter where you're going or what happens next. There's always toast and a nice tidy desk. Now that we have read through our text, the first step in this bite-sized text response activity is to summarize what we just read and what we think the author is saying in one clear sentence. Now, if you want to do this analysis along with me, I'm going to give you a second to pause and have a go at writing this sentence before I give you my response. In Look Alive, Clark encourages readers to embrace the present moment, suggesting that true fulfillment can be found by noticing and appreciating small, everyday joys. This is going to become my topic sentence in what is about to be my single paragraph condensed version of a text response. The reason I recommend starting with this is that when you're analyzing a text for a text response essay or for language analysis, before you even begin, it's really crucial to ensure that you have a solid understanding of what the author is actually saying. So you want to take a minute to stop and think about how do you interpret what you just read and how do you want to articulate that interpretation? Now, as you know, on a language analysis stack, you'll have to develop your interpretations on the spot, so practicing this skill in this format will undoubtedly be useful for you. But even if we're translating this idea to the process of writing a text response essay on a text that you've been studying for a while, thinking about it in this way offers that useful reminder that topic sentences, or contentions, are the building blocks of your essay, and when writing them, it's really, really important to stop and consider, what do you actually want to say about your text, and how do you want to convey your interpretation? The next step we're going to do in our bite-sized text analysis activity is we're going to see if we can identify how the author has used language in interesting or impactful ways. We're going to see if we can pull out any quotes, maybe identify any language techniques used in the extract. Since we're only writing a single paragraph text response, I'm going to recommend that you try and identify between 3 to 5 quotes/language techniques. As a quick aside, in this video, I might reference some language techniques that you mightn't have come across before. If that's the case, don't stress, I'm going to explain it to you. But also the ability to know the name of a language technique is not nearly as relevant as the ability to understand what an author is saying and explain how they're saying it. So you might just happen to learn some new meta language today. Again, I'm going to suggest that you pause this video for a second and have a read over the article again to see if you can pull out some quotes before I give you mine. Alright, let me show you some of the quotes that stuck out to me. We are always, but not really, on our way to somewhere. This is a paradox. The author uses this paradoxical statement to get us to think about how we're always looking ahead to the next thing rather than staying in the present moment. And because no matter where we are or what we've achieved, many of us are just thinking about what we're going to do next, in some ways, nothing ever changes. Can't find a view? Tidy your desk, wash your window, rearrange a cutlery drawer. Next, the author's tone shifts and she asks us this rhetorical question before she begins instructing us on how we could reset our perspective or approach life differently. This instructive or commanding tone could be called imperative tone. Then, in offering these suggestions, firstly, you might notice that there is a rule of 3 here used, which, if you wanted, you could call a tricolon. But I think the important thing to comment on here is that she gives us this accumulation of what I would call truncated sentences, short sentences that would otherwise be grammatically incorrect if it weren't for the context. Similarly, further down, the author says, a song that takes you somewhere else, a donut, a bath, toast. She uses these truncated sentences throughout the piece because doing so slows our pace as we read, and rather than listing things off, a donut, a bath, toast, we're asked to stop and consider the value of each of these small joys that she's highlighting. This is a public service announcement. While I haven't given you any context or background information around this article, so you don't really know where have a go at writing one yourself, you're more than welcome to, but this is what I've written. In Look Alive, Clark encourages readers to embrace the present moment, suggesting that true fulfillment can be found by noticing and appreciating small, everyday joys. This idea is gently introduced through a child's innocent question, which prompts the author to reflect that we are always but not really on our way to somewhere, a paradoxical statement that highlights how easily we lose sight of the present in our constant rush towards what's next. Clark's reflective tone becomes instructional through the use of a rhetorical question, can't find a view, followed by an accumulation of short imperative phrases, tidy a desk, wash a window, rearrange a cutlery drawer. These truncated sentences break up the rhythm of the piece and slow the pacing, inviting the reader to pause and consider the quiet pleasures in each task. Similarly, when she lists a song that takes you somewhere, a donut, a bath, toast, the brief standalone sentences give the emotional weight to each item, creating a sense of gratitude and attention to detail. Even the hyperbolic phrase, "this is a public service announcement," adds a touch of humor and urgency, reframing mindfulness as something both essential and accessible. Through these techniques, Clark crafts a light but persuasive appeal to mindfulness, showing that joy doesn't always lie ahead of us, it can be found right where we are. And just like that, in a bite-sized and manageable way, we have practiced most of the steps involved in analysing a text and writing a response on it. So since that took no time at all, we're going to do a couple more. This next extract is from On Writing, Authors Reveal the Secrets of Their Craft by Michael Freen. Ideas for things come into one's head, or bits of ideas. You feel there's something, there's some meat on the bone, there's something there that lures you on. The more you think about it, the more you're led into this new world, and the more of that world you see. And part of having an idea is having some notion of how you would tell the story. And the idea for the way to tell the story helps you to see what the story is. The story suggests the means suggests the story. It's mutually dependent. And you don't have very much choice in the matter. Ideas come, characters suggest themselves, and the nature of the story and the nature of the characters dictates how it's going to be done. I suppose if people are not writers or painters or whatever, they see the life of the artist as being one of great freedom, but it's not really. It's constrained as anyone else's by the material that's available. The thing seems to have some kind of reality in one's head. It seems to be something that one is discovering rather than inventing. I see that as a kind of psychological trick on oneself, because the whole point about fiction is that it's invention. It doesn't really seem like it at the time. It seems as if you're slowly discovering something that already exists and seeing how different parts of it relate to each other. So just as we did with our last example, we're going to start by taking a second to ask ourselves, what is the author saying here, and how am I going to articulate my interpretation of this text in one clear sentence? Take a second to pause this video now if you want to have a go at writing your own topic sentence. And here is my topic sentence. Frayne illuminates his creative process as a writer by describing inspiration not as an act of invention, but as a gradual discovery of creative ideas already waiting to be uncovered. Now, I just want to say, if your interpretation of this text or any of these texts is a little bit different than mine, that's more than okay. You're allowed to interpret whatever you like as long as you can back it up. So that leads me on to the next step. Let's talk about the way that Frayne uses language to convey these ideas. Or in other words, I'm about to point to the quotes that helped me construct my interpretation. So pause this video if you want to pull out your own quotes. Right off the bat, the author starts off with this metaphor. There's some meat on the bone. There's something there that lures you on. Immediately, this establishes imagery that highlights what Frayne's creative process feels like to him. It feels like creative inspiration arrives to him with a sense of substance to it. So rather than sitting down, trying to think up a new idea out of thin air, it feels like he's being led into this new world that already exists and has a reality to it beyond his imagination. The story suggests the means suggests the story. Now, one example of a technique you mightn't have come across before is chiasmus. Chiasmus is basically the sentence structure that you can see being used in this example here, where a phrase is written and then repeated in reverse. As a rule of thumb, I think about this as ABBA, A-B-B-A. One iconic example of chiasmus from pop culture is JFK's speech where he goes, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." It seems to be something that one is discovering rather than inventing. Now, while this isn't the most obvious example by any means, in some ways I would consider this a simile because we're comparing the process of coming up with a new idea to the process of discovering something that, as we said before, has a reality beyond the author's imagination. That's not what is literally occurring. So let's put it all together into one cohesive paragraph. Frayne illuminates his creative process as a writer by describing inspiration not as an act of invention, but as a gradual discovery of ideas already waiting to be uncovered. Describing how stories begin to take shape in the mind, he opens with the metaphor that his ideas have some meat on the bone, suggesting that inspiration arrives incomplete, but with just enough substance to lure him on. This image frames creativity as an instinctive pursuit, where the artist is drawn into the world of the story before fully understanding what it is. Frayne captures the organic, almost circular nature of the writing process through the chiasmic structure. The story suggests the means suggests the story, illustrating the way form and content evolve together, each shaping the other. Later, he reflects on the illusion that writing feels less like invention and more like exploration, claiming it seems to be something that one is discovering rather than inventing. This subtle simile reinforces the idea that imagining creative worlds often feels like uncovering something that already exists, and that Frayne feels his creativity doesn't offer him a sense of freedom, as it's a process he has little control over. Through these reflections, Frayne presents artistic creation as both mysterious and structured, where the role of the artist is less about imposing meaning and more about remaining receptive to the shape the story wants to take. Brilliant! And now, finally, we're going to have a read of an extract from Ocean Vuong's wonderful novel, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. With Lan, one of my tasks was to take a pair of tweezers and pluck, one by one, the grey hairs from her head. "The snow in my hair," she explained. "It makes my head itch. Will you pluck my itchy hairs, little dog? The snow is rooting into me." She slid a pair of tweezers between my fingers. "Make Grandma young today, okay?" she said real quiet, grinning. For this work I was paid in stories. After positioning her head under the window's light, I would kneel on a pillow behind her, the tweezers ready in my grip. She would start to talk, her tone dropping an octave, drifting deep into a narrative. Mostly, as was her way, she rambled, the tales cycling one after another. They spiraled out from her mind, only to return the next week with the same introduction. Now this one, little dog, this one will really take you out. You ready? Are you even interested in what I'm saying? Good, because I never lie. A familiar story would follow, punctuated with the same dramatic pauses and inflections during moments of suspense or crucial turns. I'd mouth along with the sentences, as if watching a film for the umpteenth time, a movie made by Lan's words and animated by my imagination. In this way, we collaborated. As I plucked, the blank walls around us did not so much fill with fantastical landscapes as open into them, the plaster disintegrating to reveal the past behind it. Scenes from the war, mythologies of man-like monkeys, of ancient ghost catchers from the hills of Dalat who were paid in jugs of rice wine, who travelled through villages with packs of wild dogs and spells written on palm leaves to dispel evil spirits. Okay, you know the drill by now. We're going to start by summarising everything we just read. If you want to have a go at writing your own topic sentence, pause the video now. Here is my topic sentence. Vyong captures the quiet intimacy between grandparent and grandchild, illustrating how storytelling becomes a shared act of love, memory, and imagination. We're going to go through this one a little bit more quickly this time, so if you want to pull out some language techniques, go ahead and do that now. Otherwise, here are the quotes that stuck out to me. They spiraled out of her mind, only to return the next week with the same introduction. This metaphor creates imagery that allows us to visualize the spiraling, rambling, meandering nature of his grandmother's stories as they flow out of her memory. I'd mouth along with the sentences as if watching a film for the umpteenth time. Vyong uses this simile, along with other examples of metaphorical language in this section, to compare listening to Lan's stories with rewatching a beloved favourite movie. It highlights that her stories are immersive and allow him to feel drawn into the world of her memory and her imagination. He follows this up with a metaphor, a movie made by Lan's words and animated by my imagination. In this way, we collaborated. I think Vyong emphasizes the collaborative nature of storytelling to highlight how, through becoming immersed in the stories of his grandmother's past, he's able to feel more connected to her and to his family history. And then, while of course we would condense this quote when we analyze it in our text response, I really want to talk about that last paragraph there. The blank walls did not so much fill with fantastical landscapes as open into them, the plaster disintegrating to reveal the past behind it. Scenes from the war, mythologies of man-like monkeys, of ancient ghost catchers from the hills of Dalat who were paid in jugs of rice wine. Again, we have metaphorical language here with the blank walls opening into these fantastical landscapes. But more broadly, I love the accumulation of visual imagery in this section. Lan's spiraling and immersive stories convey these fantastical scenes that blend reality and moments from her memory with mythology and imagination. So finally, let's put it all together into one cohesive paragraph for the last text that we're analysing today. Vyong captures the quiet intimacy between grandparent and grandchild, illustrating how storytelling becomes a shared act of love, memory, and imagination. Describing how Lan's tales spiraled out from her mind, Vyong uses metaphor to convey the meandering, organic rhythm of her storytelling. Vyong's use of simile, I'd mouth along with the sentences as if watching a film for the umpteenth time, conveys that these stories have become repetitive rituals embedded in memory, like scenes from a beloved movie. He extends this cinematic metaphor, describing his grandmother's stories as a movie made by Lan's words and animated by my imagination, framing storytelling as a collaborative act in which each participant plays a vital role. Finally, Vyong evokes a sense of wonder through rich visual imagery, describing how the blank walls did not so much fill with fantastical landscapes as open into them, revealing layered scenes of war, myth, and folklore. This accumulation of fantastical images blurs the lines between past and present, reality and imagination, showing how Lan's immersive storytelling seems to transform the physical space around them. Through these layered techniques, Vyong not only evokes the deep bond between Lan and her grandson, but also elevates storytelling as an act of shared remembering, bridging generations through language and love. And there you have it. We have analysed together 3 short texts and written 3 short analytical responses, which means we've practiced from start to finish the process that you're going to be applying to text response essays and language analysis SATs. I really hope you give this bite-sized text analysis study strategy a go, because if you can practice this with some regularity, you will watch your English grades absolutely skyrocket. As always, drop me a comment and let me know if you have any questions or if there are any particular topics you would like to see me cover in the next video. Otherwise, happy studying!